Hello, this is California family law attorney and mediator Bryan Ginter, and this video is an introduction to several family law agreements that are available in California. So the first one, and probably the most popular, is a premarital agreement, also called a prenuptial agreement. Now, with a premarital agreement, it is an agreement that is made in the anticipation of marriage, so prior to any marriage, and it becomes effective upon marriage. And a lot of people don't quite understand what a premarital agreement can do, and there are many things that a premarital agreement can do. So I think the best way and the easiest way to explain it is that in California, we are a community property state. And so you've all heard of if you open up a new bank account or a new credit card, you'll get something in the mail for opting out of privacy choices. Well, a premarital agreement is what I call the opt-out for community property law. At least that's one thing that you can do with a premarital agreement, is to opt out of community property law. So for example, if you don't want to have community property created, you can use a premarital agreement to avoid that. Other things that you can do with a premarital agreement is you can address what happens with spousal support, which is also called alimony. That can also be addressed in a premarital agreement. You can also address what happens in the event a divorce occurs. How do you divide property? So there are many reasons why somebody would want a premarital agreement, in addition to being able to indicate that your property will remain your property, or that your income will remain your separate property income. Now, as far as premarital agreements and some dangers to be careful of, is that there are several rules that you must follow in order to have a premarital agreement remain enforceable, because you don't want to go through all the work and the expense of creating a premarital agreement and then finding out later that it will not be enforceable. And so, for example, depending on what you are trying to do with a premarital agreement, an attorney may be required. If an attorney is not involved, then certain steps have to be taken in order to make sure that the agreement will be considered voluntary and enforceable later. Now, with a postmarital agreement, it's very similar to a premarital agreement, but the main difference is that it is not an agreement that's made in anticipation of marriage. Instead, it is one that is made after the marriage has occurred. Now, I don't want to confuse people with something called a marital settlement agreement. A marital settlement agreement is an agreement that's being made in the anticipation of a divorce. And so with a postmarital agreement, you're making an agreement with the other person, but not in the anticipation of a divorce. In other words, you anticipate that the marriage will continue. Now, a lot of the rules that apply to a premarital agreement apply to a postmarital agreement, so you want to be careful of that as well. The final agreement that I will address is something called a cohabitation agreement, also sometimes called a Marvin agreement, but essentially it's when two people enter into an agreement and there is no anticipated marriage. I hope this has been helpful, and if you are interested in moving forward with one of these agreements, certainly feel free to give us a call. Have a wonderful day.